I couldn't see. It was dark and cold. All I could hear was a woman screaming in a painful agony. Then I saw before my eyes a pale man. His eyes were colorless, and a sickly smile was painted upon his leathery face. I began to giggle, my infant hands reaching for him. He sang to me, through his voice frightening. It was soft and warming. Hush up, baby, don't say a word, Dad. Before he could finish, blood gushed from a hole in his shoulder. A bullet had pierced him. Holding his bleeding arm, he smashed through the closest window, the glass dancing to the ground. When my vision became blurry, and the world became dark and quiet, my lids shot open. I exhaled deeply from my nightmare. It had come to an end. My bright blue eyes trailed around the room, searching for any moving objects. As I sat there in my small bed, fear was slowly draining from my shaking body. My head hung low. I watched my pale foot softly touch the hard wooden floor. My hand dragged itself on the wall as my body stumbled down the stairs. I violently swung the fridge open, my gaze searching for any sign of food. Then something caught my attention. A bright green fruit sat on the counter, along with a note. Dear Mary, I will be back at sunset to bring dinner. Remember, don't open the door or answer it. Love, Daddy. Her eyes softened at the note. She would rarely speak to her father, well, since he would be gone all day hunting. She never really sees him. Her whole life was in a dusty old house, rotting away like the bark it was made of. Her teeth chomped the pear to pieces, and the savory taste pleased her dried lips. The fruit was very good. It was sour, and yet it was sweet. A smile stretched upon her face, quickly running up the stairs into her room. Pencil in hand, she began to sketch a picture, her focus broken by a strange sound. A tapping noise at her window. She gazed at the glass to see a woman. Her eyes were a bright green, and her hair blonde with a rose fixed upon her ear. Mary stepped to the window pane. The woman smiled softly and placed her hand on the cold glass. And oddly, so did Mary. She loved the woman's smile. It was warm and comforting. What's your name? Mary asked the strange woman. She didn't answer. She just stayed there smiling at Mary. The front door slammed open, which meant her father was back from hunting early. Mary turned her head back to the window, but the rose woman was gone. She skipped down the steps to see her father, and there stood a tall man. He had a 5 o'clock shadow. His eyes were a deep green, and long caramel hair was that hanged in his face. Hey, welcome home. Mary's tired but happy just to see him. His eyes gazed down to see the girl. How was your day? You seem happy. Daddy, you're not going to... Her speech was broken by the large black bag swung over her father's shoulder. She swore that it moved. Pointing out to the father, he told her that the dead deer don't move, then headed upstairs. Every time he would come home from hunting, he went up there to butcher the meat. They never went to the store for food. Their cabin was deep in the monochrome woods, where the wolves ran free, and the monsters loitered the grounds. Well, that's what Father told her. She had never been outside in fear of the beast, and because he told her not to. She went back to her room, but stopped when noticing the door in the middle of the hall. There she could hear strange things coming from that room, animal and human screams that were soon followed by a loud, mushing noise. Once she locked her door, she skipped happily to her window. She put her face to the glass, and at the same time, the Rose Woman's face did the same. Mary closed her eyes, falling asleep with her palm on the cold window pane. Every day for a week, Mary could go to her window and smile at the woman. She thought the woman was her friend. Until that day. The day life was ruined by her envy for the smile and presence of anyone who loved her. The smile wasn't enough. She needed people. She needed a life worth living. "Goodbye, Mary. I'll be back soon, sweetie," yelled her father from downstairs before he left the gray and dull home. Mary smiled really big. She grabbed her favorite dress, a backpack full of her sketches, and headed to the window. "I'm sorry, but I need to go. I'll miss you the most." The woman wasn't there. She was gone. Mary's face saddened, and her eyes gazed at the door at the mid-hallway. It was cracked open. Her eyes widened at the sight. She had never seen that door open, or even unlocked. Knowing her father would never find out, she walked into the room when a foul stench smacked her in the face. Her hands covered her nose and mouth when she saw the horror in that room. Bodies hung on hooks, most of their flesh and meat missing. But they all had something in common. Their clothes were that of campers. She saw men, women, and even people her age, laying there, just rotting away. Tears ran down her cold, pale cheeks when something caught her gaze. There in the corner was the Rose Woman, only she was different. Her skin was burnt and brown. Her hair was gone only to be replaced by a black dirty wig. The rose was brown and dead, but the thing that scared her was in the woman's lap. There was a pitch white mask with a smile painted on it. The smile that she envied. "Hey Mary, I forgot my gun. Have you seen it?" Her eyes widened with horror. Before she could think about anything, her body quickly ran into her room, throwing the bag to under the bed, and turned around to see her father just getting to the top of the steps. "Yes, Daddy?" Her voice was a bit frightened, but he didn't notice. Have you seen my gun?" "Oh, never mind. I just remembered where it is." He went to his room, then came out with the old camouflage weapon. A deep exhale came from her pink lips as she walked to her room. But before she could, a yell came from behind. "Mary, did you go in this room?" His eyes showed anger, but his voice showed a displeased tone. Mary shook her head, but he grabbed her forearm and threw her small pale body down the stairs. The world becoming dark once more for little Mary. Her vision was fuzzy, and the pain was unbearable in her lower stomach. When her sight became normal, she noticed her hands and feet were tied up with a hard rope. Then she saw him, that damn bastard standing before her cold, bruised body. Her bright blue eyes glared at him. "Don't you look at me that way, you unwanted bitch." Mary, full of rage and uncontrollable anger, burst. "I'm not unwanted. My parents love me." The man chuckled at her words like as if a joke. "You fucking kidding me? Your parents didn't want you? Hell, when I got there, that freak was about to kill you, like he did that woman. I saved your life, you little skank." Then in a flash, Mary saw more of the nightmare. The smiling man that was holding her, and the woman in the background, were her parents. So, what this man's saying, that he shot her father, but then that means it's his fault no one loves her. Her life was ruined because of this. Man, this fucking bastard. She never got to see her parents. Mary could hear the woman from outside, felt her every step as she got closer to the door. The man that she once called her father was now cursing and yelling at her. The only thing she could do was cry. She was crying so much that it became hard to breathe. Then, it happened. A loud knock on the door caused silence in the home. The man stomped to the door. undoing the bolts and locks. The solid fist of a woman ran into his head, forcing his body onto the hard floor. The woman from the window was there, smiling at me, then leaned down to kiss my forehead, knocking me out cold. Please, Mary, please, spare me. What? Mary was standing before the dying man, holding a long piece of broken window glass. There was many glass shards stabbed into his chest. Mary didn't know what was going on until she looked at the window to see the rose woman smiling at her. Please. Mary glared at the man and knew what to do. To get what you want, you have to fight for it. Even if it means killing this man. His flesh tasted great. I needed this. Now, he is not smiling. But I ended his life. There in the flames of what was my life, I couldn't leave the corpse there, so I dumped him in a nearby creek. I watched the black sin flood from his corpse. For every doll I saw was a family that died by his hands. I laughed until blood spilled from my mouth, turned to see my mom with her yellow rose in hand. I ran up to hug her, and that I did, until we never wanted you. I died because of you. Mary looked up to see her father, confused. She began to frown. You are a mistake. You are my only flaw. Tears formed in her eyes when she fell to the ground. She sobbed until rain poured on what was once her home. All she wanted was to be with her true father. She got burned for him. She killed for him. And he still didn't love her. Hello, child. Mary looked up, tears falling onto her warm cheeks to see a beautiful blue woman smiling at her. Mary sniffled. The woman was being nice to me. I thought I was just a flaw. Hello. The woman giggled, holding an umbrella over Mary to keep her dry. Shy one, aren't you? The woman gazed over to the rubble. Wait one moment, child. She left the umbrella in Mary's hand, then gracefully wandered through the burned wood. Why does it feel like I've met her before? Mary silenced this thought when the woman returned with a bag. Slowly, she handed it to Mary with a warm smile. I thought you might want these. Mary looked into the gray bag to find her once colorful sketches, now burned at the edges. Her favorite dress, now dyed black, caused to the smoke. And at the very bottom was the pitch white mask, with a smile she once envied. How did you? The woman leaned down to hug Mary. I don't think you're a flaw. And to this day, anyone who come near the home will be stuck in a time loop of a young girl's wrath. Her innocence was left behind only to repeat itself until the blood of those who left her spills upon her.